Her family sold the Apache girl for being lame, but the rancher found her worth. Her legs were weaker than the others, and she walked with a limp that grew more noticeable as she got older. While other children ran freely across the dusty plains, jumping over rocks and chasing after animals, she struggled to keep up. Every step was a challenge, and every fall left her exhausted and frustrated. Her parents, proud members of their community, watched her with worry. They loved her in their way, but they also felt the weight of the village's expectations. In their eyes, strength, speed, and the ability to keep up with the tribe's rigorous daily life were essential for survival. To them, her limp was more than just a physical limitation. It was a mark that set her apart, a sign that she might never fit in. Though they tried to hide it, whispers of disappointment often passed between them when they thought she was not listening. The girl, even at a young age, sensed that she was not quite like the others. She saw the way the other children played, their laughter ringing through the air as they raced across the open fields. She wanted to join them, to feel the joy of running and chasing, but her body refused. Sometimes she would try and she would stumble, scraping her knees and elbows. The other children would giggle or shake their heads, and she would retreat to a quiet corner, hiding her tears and wishing that she could be strong like them. At home, her life was no easier. Her parents were gentle with her at times, offering soft words and small comforts, but they also spoke about her limitations in hushed tones. They worried about how others would view her, and slowly, a seed of fear and shame took root. They wondered if she could survive in the world outside the safety of the family home, if she could ever find a place where she belonged. Their love was real, but it was mixed with a practical fear that was hard for a small child to understand. One day, when the girl was around 8 years old, her parents made a decision that would change her life forever. It was not made out of cruelty, but out of desperation and worry. They decided to sell her to a rancher who lived not far from the village. The rancher was known to take in children and care for them, especially those who were unwanted or could not be fully cared for at home. To the parents, it seemed like a solution. To the girl, it was a heartbreak she could barely comprehend. The morning of the separation, the girl woke to the sound of voices she did not recognize. Her mother was quietly packing a small bundle of her belongings, while her father stood outside, pacing nervously. The girl's heart pounded as she tried to understand what was happening. She clutched a worn blanket, the only comfort she had ever truly known, and asked questions, but her parents' answers were soft and evasive. They told her she would go to live somewhere she could be safe, somewhere she would learn new skills. They did not tell her the whole truth, that she was being sold because they thought she was too weak, too lame to survive in their eyes. The journey to the rancher's home was long and difficult. She rode on a simple wagon, her small body bouncing with every uneven step of the wheels over the dusty trail. Along the way, she held her bundle tightly and tried not to cry. The fields they passed looked familiar, yet strange, as if the world she had known was shrinking behind her. She looked back toward her village, hoping to catch a glimpse of someone who might change their minds, someone who might call her back, but all she saw was the horizon stretching endlessly. When they arrived at the rancher met them with a cautious smile. He was a tall man, broad-shouldered, with hands hardened by years of labor. He had heard about the girl and had agreed to take her in. To him, she was another soul to care for, someone who needed guidance, patience, and time. He did not know yet what kind of person she would grow to be, but he believed in giving a chance to those others had overlooked. The girl's first days on the ranch were filled with fear and confusion. The animals, though calm to the rancher, seemed enormous and intimidating to her. Horses towered over her small frame, cows stared curiously, and even the chickens seemed to watch her with judgmental eyes. She felt out of place, a stranger in a world that moved too fast, a world that demanded strength and agility she did not yet have. But slowly, she began to notice things that others overlooked. She saw the patterns of the animals, how they reacted to different sounds, how the horses would move when someone approached. She noticed the small cracks in the fence where a cow might escape and the quiet corners where the chickens liked to rest. While she could not run as fast or lift as much as the ranch hands, she had an eye for detail, a patience that allowed her to understand the ranch in ways others could not. At night, she would sit by the fire in the small cabin the rancher had prepared for her. She thought about her village, about her parents, and about the life she had lost. Loneliness settled over her like a heavy blanket, but so did a quiet determination. She decided that she would learn, that she would adapt, that she would find a way to belong. Even if her body was not strong, her mind and heart could be. She made a silent promise to herself that she would not be defined by the word lame, that she would show the world, and maybe even her parents, that she had value. Days turned into weeks, and the rancher noticed her persistence. He saw the way she approached her tasks with careful thought, how she did not give up even when something seemed impossible. He offered gentle guidance, teaching her how to feed the animals, how to carry water, and how to move safely around the ranch. The girl listened intently, soaking up every word, every gesture, every lesson. She began to feel a small spark of confidence growing inside her, a feeling she had never truly experienced before. Her first success came with a small task that the rancher gave her, feeding the chickens. It seemed simple enough, but for her, it required balance, careful movement, and timing. She carefully scattered the grain, watching as the chickens pecked at it, and for the first time she felt a sense of accomplishment. It was not grand, it was not heroic, but it was hers. The rancher noticed her pride and gave her a nod, a simple gesture but one that spoke volumes. She realized that this place, harsh and demanding as it was, could also be a place where she could belong. Even though the girl was still small and physically limited, she started to find ways to contribute to the ranch. She learned how to groom the horses in ways that did not require strength but required patience and careful observation. She began to understand the rhythms of the animals, the subtle signs that told her when a cow was sick or when a horse was nervous. Her limp no longer felt like a burden but a part of her that required her to be creative and thoughtful in her actions. At night, as she lay down in the quiet cabin, she would think of her family, of the life she had left behind. There was sadness, yes, but there was also hope. She realized that she had survived something difficult, that she had been given a second chance, and that she had the ability to grow stronger in ways she had never imagined. Though she was still just a child, the first seeds of resilience and courage had begun to take root in her heart. Life on the ranch was unlike anything the Apache girl had ever known. The vast open field stretched endlessly under the bright sun, the wind carrying the scents of grass, dust, and animals. At first, it was overwhelming. Everything was bigger, louder, and faster than she was used to. Horses galloped with ease, cows lowed across the pastures, and the ranch hands moved quickly from task to task. She often felt small and clumsy in this new world. Her limp, which had caused her so much difficulty in her village, still made many tasks a challenge. The rancher, a quiet man with rough hands and a kind heart, never treated her as if she were weaker. Instead, he gave her work that matched her abilities while gently encouraging her to grow. Her first real job was caring for the smaller animals, the chickens, goats, and sheep. At first, she struggled to carry the feed and water across the uneven ground. She tripped often, and the animals would scatter when she moved too slowly. The ranch hands chuckled sometimes, teasing her gently, though the girl did not let it discourage her. She learned to move carefully, observing how the animals reacted to her presence. Slowly, she began to gain their trust, and the animals no longer ran away when she approached. She discovered that she had a natural understanding of the animals. She noticed subtle behaviors that others ignored. A horse would paw the ground nervously if it sensed a storm approaching. A cow would shift its weight in a certain way when it was in pain. The girl learned to recognize these signs and respond with calm, deliberate actions. She realized that strength was not always about speed or muscle. It could also be about patience, attention, and care. Even with her limp, she could be valuable because she had learned to see what others did not. Despite her progress, the girl faced difficulties. Some ranch hands doubted her ability to contribute meaningfully. They would assign her simple tasks, like sweeping the barn or gathering eggs, and sometimes they did not believe she could complete them. When mistakes happened, they could be harsh with their words. But she never let their doubts stop her. Each failure was a lesson. She learned to adjust her movements, plan ahead, and work smarter, not just harder. Over time, the ranch hands began to notice her determination and skill. One day, she was asked to help with the horses. They were much larger and stronger than the girl, and at first, she felt intimidated. The rancher patiently showed her how to approach them, how to speak softly, and how to read their body language. The girl listened carefully, observing each gesture. When it was her turn to groom a horse, she moved slowly and deliberately, making sure not to startle it. By the end of the day, the horse was calm, and the rancher gave her a rare smile of approval. The girl felt a surge of pride. She realized that she could overcome her physical limitations by using her mind and her heart. Her days were long and exhausting. From sunrise to sunset, she worked alongside the ranch hands, learning the routines of the ranch. She helped feed the animals, clean the barns, mend fences, and gather firewood. Each task was a challenge for her body, but she faced them with patience and determination. She also spent time observing the land. She noticed patterns in the wind, the soil, and the way the animals moved. This understanding gave her an advantage. She began to anticipate problems before they occurred, whether it was a fence that might break or a cow that was about to wander off. Despite her growing skills, the girl often felt lonely. She missed her village and her parents, even though they had sold her. At night, she would sit by the fire in her small cabin, thinking about the family she had lost. There was sadness in her heart, but she also began to feel a sense of purpose. The ranch had given her an opportunity she never expected, a chance to learn, to grow, and to prove her worth. She made a promise to herself that she would not let her past define her. She would show the world that she was capable, and she would never give up, no matter how difficult life became. The rancher became a quiet source of support. He noticed her dedication and her natural talent with the animals. He began giving her more responsibility, trusting her with tasks that were once considered too difficult for a child. She learned to feed the horses, check the health of the livestock, and even guide the animals through the pastures. Each success built her confidence, and she began to believe in herself. She realized that her value was not measured by her parents' judgment or by the opinions of others. It was measured by her actions and her determination. One morning, the girl was asked to help with a herd of cattle that needed to be moved to a new pasture. The task required strength, coordination, and courage. At first, she felt nervous. The cattle were large and she was small. But she remembered the lessons she had learned from the rancher and the animals themselves. She observed the herd, noting the behavior of each cow. She found ways to guide them using her voice, her presence, and gentle movements. To everyone's surprise, she managed the herd without any trouble. The rancher watched quietly, a proud expression on his face. That day, she realized that she was capable of far more than she had ever imagined. Life on the ranch was not without danger. Storms would roll in quickly, bringing rain, wind, and lightning. Animals could become frightened and unpredictable. The girl learned to stay calm in these situations, observing the animals' behavior and acting with care. One afternoon, a sudden storm approached while she was feeding the horses. The wind picked up and the horses grew restless. She stayed calm, guiding each horse to safety and speaking softly to soothe them. The rancher arrived soon after and saw the girl's skill and bravery. He realized that she had a rare gift, a combination of patience, courage, and understanding that few people possessed. As the months passed, the girl continued to grow stronger, not just in body but in spirit. She developed routines that made her work more manageable and discovered small joys in her daily life. She enjoyed the quiet mornings when the sun rose over the pastures, the soft nuzzles of the horses, and the satisfaction of a job well done. Each day she learned something new, whether it was a trick to mend a fence more efficiently or a way to calm a nervous animal. She was no longer the helpless child who had arrived at the ranch. She was becoming someone who was respected and valued. Despite the progress she had made, she never forgot her past. She thought about her village, her parents, and the life she had left behind. Sometimes she felt a pang of sadness and longing. But she also felt gratitude for the ranch, for the animals, and for the rancher who had seen her potential when others had only seen her weakness. She realized that her journey was not just about survival. It was about growth, discovery, and learning to see her own worth. By the end of her second year on the ranch, the girl had become an integral part of daily life there. The animals trusted her, the ranch hands began to rely on her, and the rancher knew that she could handle responsibilities that once seemed impossible. She had transformed from a timid, rejected child into a determined, capable young girl. Her limp was still present, but it no longer defined her. She had found strength in patience, intelligence, and compassion. Her story began to spread quietly among the nearby families. People came to the ranch not just to buy or sell animals, but to see the young girl who had overcome her challenges with courage and determination. Her name became known, and her reputation as someone who could care for the animals and handle difficult situations grew. But she remained humble, never boasting of her accomplishments. She understood that her strength came from hard work, careful observation, and a quiet belief in herself, not from the approval of others. At night, as she lay under the wide sky filled with stars, she reflected on her journey. She thought about the family who had sold her, about the village she had left behind, and about the new life she had built. There was still sadness, but it was mixed with pride and hope. She had learned that life could be unfair, that people could make mistakes, but that she could rise above her circumstances. She had discovered a resilience she did not know she possessed, and she began to dream of a future where she could continue to grow, help others, and find a place where she truly belonged. The rancher often watched her quietly from a distance, noticing the way she moved, the way she cared for the animals, and the determination in her eyes. He knew that she had a rare spirit, one that could overcome challenges that many would consider insurmountable. He felt proud to be a part of her journey and to have given her the chance to discover her own strength. In many ways, the ranch had become more than a home. It had become a place where she could thrive, learn, and shine. Through her time on the ranch, the Apache girl discovered something profound. She realized that her value was not tied to her physical abilities or to the opinions of those who had rejected her. True worth came from persistence, courage, and the willingness to grow despite challenges. She had found a place where she belonged, where she was respected, and where she could use her talents to make a difference. And though her journey was far from over, she now faced the future with confidence, ready to meet whatever challenges lay ahead. Life on the ranch continued to teach the Apache girl lessons every day, but it was in the hardest moments that her true character began to emerge. She had grown more confident, more capable, and more aware of her surroundings, yet life was far from easy. She still faced challenges that tested her body, her mind, and her spirit. One day, a challenge arrived that would push her to her limits, a test that would force her to prove her worth in a way she had never imagined. It began with a simple task, helping guide the herd of cattle to a new pasture. The rancher trusted her with this responsibility because he knew her abilities had grown over the years. The other ranch hands watched her with curiosity, some doubting that such a small, physically limited girl could manage such an important job. The cattle were restless, moving in a large, unpredictable group. It required careful observation, timing, and an understanding of their behavior. Many would have thought it impossible for her to handle alone, but she remembered all the lessons she had learned, the patience, the careful attention to detail, and the ways she could guide animals without force. As she led the herd, dark clouds began to gather over the horizon. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of rain and the sound of distant thunder. Animals can sense storms before humans can, and the cattle began to grow anxious. Some of them brayed and stamped their hooves, ready to bolt. The girl's heart raced, but she forced herself to stay calm. She had learned that animals respond to calm energy, not panic. She spoke softly to them, her voice steady, and moved with slow, deliberate steps to guide the herd away from danger. The storm approached faster than anyone expected. Rain began to fall in heavy sheets, and lightning split the sky. The wind howled across the pasture, knocking over fences and sending debris flying. The ranch hands ran for shelter, but the girl refused to leave the cattle. She knew that if they panicked, they could scatter and be lost, or worse, injured. She moved from one side of the herd to the other, keeping them together, guiding the frightened animals to a safe enclosure she had noticed earlier. Her limp made the task physically demanding, each step slippery and exhausting, but she refused to give up. Hours seemed to pass like minutes as she worked tirelessly, soaked to the skin and shivering from the cold rain. Some of the larger cows resisted her guidance, pushing against her carefully placed movements, but she remained firm yet gentle. She had learned to read their eyes, to notice the subtle shifts in weight, and to anticipate their next move. Slowly, the herd began to respond to her calm and consistent guidance. By the time the rancher arrived with the other hands, the cattle were safely enclosed, and not a single animal had been lost. The rancher's face was a mixture of relief and pride. He had known she was capable, but witnessing her bravery firsthand was a revelation. He quietly watched as she dried her hands and checked the animals for injuries, amazed by her courage, patience, and determination. For the first time, the other ranch hands looked at her with genuine respect. They had doubted her before, but now it was impossible to ignore her abilities. She had faced the storm and the panic of the herd with a level of skill and calmness that few could match. That night the girl sat by the fire in her small cabin, exhausted but proud. Her clothes were soaked, her muscles ached, and yet there was a sense of accomplishment she had never felt before. She reflected on the events of the day, realizing that the challenges she had faced had revealed something important about herself. She understood that courage was not the absence of fear, it was acting despite fear. She also realized that her value was not determined by her physical abilities or the opinions of others, but by her actions, her heart, and her willingness to persevere. Despite the triumph, challenges continued to appear. One morning, a serious injury occurred when one of the horses she had been caring for twisted its leg while running across the pasture. The horse was panicked and in pain, making it difficult to approach. The ranch hands suggested calling for help or letting the animal settle down, but the girl could not stand by. She carefully approached the horse, speaking softly and slowly to calm it. Using techniques she had observed from the rancher, she examined the horse's leg and supported it as best she could, preventing further injury until help arrived. The rancher later told her that her quick thinking had saved the horse from a worse injury, reinforcing her growing confidence in her abilities. It was not only physical challenges that tested her, but also moments of emotional struggle. Though the rancher and animals offered her love and acceptance, she still carried the pain of being sold by her family. Sometimes, late at night, she would think about her parents and wonder why they had chosen to give her away. She longed for answers, for understanding, and for the chance to be loved unconditionally. These thoughts could be overwhelming, but she learned to channel her emotions into her work, turning sorrow and longing into determination and resilience. One day, a neighboring rancher visited, seeking help with a troublesome herd. The task was difficult and required someone who understood both animals and terrain. The rancher entrusted the girl to assist. She moved through the fields with confidence, guiding the cattle with precision. During the process, one cow became stubborn and refused to move, threatening to disrupt the entire herd. The girl stayed calm, observing the animal's behavior and gently guiding it using methods she had developed over the years. The herd was safely moved, and the visiting rancher was astonished. He praised her skills, remarking that he had never seen someone so small handle such a difficult task so effectively. Her successes did not mean life became easy. Challenges continued to arise, each one testing her in new ways. She faced harsh weather, animal accidents, and moments of doubt. At times, her body ached from overwork, her limp making certain tasks more difficult. She struggled with feelings of inadequacy, especially when she compared herself to others who seemed faster or stronger. Yet every challenge she faced became an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to prove her resilience. Each victory, no matter how small, reinforced her belief that she had worth beyond what others might see. The girl also began to form friendships with the other ranch hands. At first, they were skeptical of her abilities, but over time, they began to respect her intelligence, patience, and courage. Some of them even sought her advice when handling difficult animals or solving tricky problems around the ranch. She learned that respect was earned not through physical strength alone, but through consistency, skill, and a willingness to face challenges head-on. Her relationships with the other workers became a source of support, helping her grow not only as a ranch helper, but also as a young person discovering her place in the world. Despite all her achievements, the girl's heart remained tender. She still thought about her village and the parents who had sold her. There were moments of loneliness, moments when she wished for the comfort of family and the familiarity of her old home. Yet she realized that life had given her a second chance, one that was filled with opportunities to learn, to grow, and to be valued for who she truly was. She embraced this new life with gratitude, determined to make the most of it and to continue proving her worth through actions, not words. Her reputation on the ranch continued to grow. Word spread to nearby communities about the young Apache girl who had saved the herd during a storm and handled difficult animals with care and skill. People were inspired by her story, recognizing that determination, patience, and courage could overcome physical limitations and societal judgments. Yet she remained humble, focused on her work, and committed to improving herself every day. She understood that her journey was ongoing and that every challenge was another step in shaping her character. Through these trials, she learned one of the most important lessons of her life, that true strength comes from within. Her limp, which had once been a source of shame and limitation, no longer defined her. She discovered that intelligence, patience, compassion, and resilience were equally powerful, if not more so. She also learned that courage is not always about grand gestures, but about the quiet determination to do what must be done, even when it is difficult or frightening. By the end of this period in her life, the girl had transformed from a timid, rejected child into a capable, respected young person. She had faced storms, animal accidents, and moments of doubt, yet she had emerged stronger and more confident. She understood the value of hard work, the importance of observing and learning, and the strength that comes from perseverance. Most importantly, she had begun to see herself not as someone defined by her limitations, but as someone capable of great accomplishments. Though challenges would continue to arise, she was ready to face them. She had learned that obstacles were not there to defeat her but to teach her, to help her discover her own courage and resilience. And with each passing day, she grew more certain that she had the ability to make a meaningful difference in the world, proving that even a girl once called lame could rise above her circumstances and inspire others through her actions and character. Life on the ranch had taught the Apache girl many lessons, but the real test of her abilities and courage was still ahead. After years of observing, learning, and quietly proving herself, she was about to face a challenge that would reveal not only her skills, but also the strength of her heart and spirit. This moment would change her life forever and show her that her worth went far beyond what anyone had once imagined. It began with a routine task, though nothing about that day would remain routine. The rancher had asked her to check the perimeter fences and make sure the animals were secure before the coming night. She walked briskly, careful with her steps, her limp making her cautious on the uneven ground. The sun was high, and the air smelled of dust and hay. As she moved from one corner of the pasture to the next, she noticed subtle signs of trouble. A fence post leaning, the ground softened from recent rain, and a few animals standing too close to the edge of the enclosure. The girl's sharp eyes picked up on details that others might have overlooked. She moved quickly to repair the weak fence and reposition the animals to safer areas. Her hands worked with precision, tying knots and securing loose wires. Her movements were deliberate and careful, showing the patience and experience she had gained over years of hard work. The rancher, who had followed her at a distance, watched silently, knowing that she had the intelligence and courage to handle the situation. As the day progressed, a sudden alarm sounded. One of the horses, frightened by a distant sound, perhaps a coyote or a loud gust of wind, broke free from its enclosure and galloped across the open field. The other animals began to panic, sensing danger and reacting in kind. The ranch hands were far away, tending to their own duties, and it fell to the girl to prevent disaster. Her heart raced, but she remembered everything she had learned: how to read the animals, how to move with calm authority, and how to guide them without force. She ran as quickly as she could, her small legs carrying her with surprising speed despite her limp. She called to the horse, her voice firm yet soothing. She approached slowly, not rushing, letting the animal see her as a guide, not a threat. The horse hesitated, its muscles tense, ready to bolt again. But the girl did not give up. She stayed calm, repeating her soft commands and moving closer with steady steps. After what felt like an eternity, the horse stopped and allowed her to guide it back toward the enclosure. The other animals followed, sensing the calm confidence in her presence. By the time the rancher arrived, every animal was safe, and not a single one had been lost or injured. He looked at the girl with awe, realizing that she had handled a crisis that could have turned into disaster. The ranch hands, who had doubted her in the past, now looked at her with newfound respect. They saw her courage, her skill, and her unwavering determination. For the first time, the girl felt fully recognized for her true abilities, not as someone lame or weak, but as someone strong, capable, and indispensable. That evening, as she cleaned the barn and prepared the animals for the night, the rancher approached her. He placed a gentle hand on her shoulder and spoke softly, praising her actions and acknowledging her bravery. "You have a gift," he said. "Not everyone could have handled that the way you did. You see things others miss, and you have the courage to act when it matters most." The girl felt a warmth in her chest, a mixture of pride and relief. For years, she had carried the pain of rejection from her family, but now she understood that her worth was real and recognized by someone who truly mattered. The days that followed brought new responsibilities. The rancher began to trust her with tasks that had previously been reserved for the most experienced workers. She helped train younger ranch hands, showing them the techniques she had developed to manage animals and handle the land efficiently. She taught them how to approach frightened horses, how to guide stubborn cows, and how to notice subtle signs of illness or distress. Her knowledge and skill grew each day, and the other workers began to seek her advice, treating her as an equal rather than a child or someone limited by her physical challenges. Her confidence blossomed alongside her skills. She began to experiment with new ideas, finding ways to improve the ranch's operations. She created better feeding schedules for the animals, reorganized storage areas for efficiency, and even designed small solutions to prevent accidents in the fields. The rancher noticed her ingenuity and encouraged her creativity, offering guidance but allowing her to take initiative. The girl felt empowered, knowing that her mind was as valuable as her hands and that her contributions truly mattered. One afternoon, a serious challenge arrived that would further cement her place on the ranch. A wildfire had started in a nearby field, spreading quickly with the dry wind. Smoke filled the air, and the animals became agitated, sensing danger. The ranch hands scrambled to gather the livestock, but the girl remained calm. She remembered the lessons she had learned over the years: patience, observation, and decisive action. She guided the horses and cattle towards safe enclosures, keeping them calm and preventing panic. Her actions were precise and deliberate, saving both animals and property from the advancing fire. After the wildfire was under control, the rancher gathered everyone together. He spoke to the other workers, praising the girl's quick thinking and leadership. He told them that she had proven herself not just through hard work, but through courage, intelligence, and heart. The young Apache girl had become an essential part of the ranch, respected by everyone and trusted with responsibilities that once seemed impossible for her. For the first time, she felt fully accepted and valued for who she was, not despite her differences, but because of the unique perspective and skills she brought. Her growth extended beyond the ranch work. The girl began to see herself differently, embracing her abilities and acknowledging her worth. She no longer compared herself to others or worried about her limitations. Instead, she focused on her strengths: her intelligence, her patience, her empathy for the animals, and her ability to remain calm under pressure. She realized that her limp did not define her. It had shaped her, teaching her to observe carefully, think creatively, and act with determination. She also began to mentor other children in the nearby community, particularly those who felt overlooked or underestimated. She shared her experiences, teaching them that challenges are not barriers but opportunities to grow. She encouraged them to trust their abilities, to learn from mistakes, and to believe in themselves even when others doubted them. Her story inspired many, showing that true strength comes from persistence, courage, and heart. One day, as she tended to the horses, the rancher approached her with a thoughtful expression. "You've come a long way," he said quietly. "I think it's time you understand just how much you've grown. You're no longer just a helper here, you're a part of this ranch, a leader in your own right." The girl smiled, feeling a sense of pride and belonging she had never known before. The journey from the rejected child to this moment of recognition was long and difficult, but every challenge had been worth it. The turning point in her life was not a single moment but a combination of experiences, each one teaching her something new about herself and the world. She had faced storms, fires, accidents, and doubts, yet she had emerged stronger and more confident. She had learned to value herself, to trust her abilities, and to act with courage and intelligence. Her journey was a testament to the power of perseverance and the importance of seeing potential where others might see limitations. By the end of this period, the Apache girl had transformed completely. She had grown into a capable, respected young person who was trusted with responsibilities and admired for her skills. She had found a place where she belonged, a place where her abilities were recognized and celebrated. Her confidence, courage, and resilience had become her greatest strengths, and she no longer saw herself through the lens of rejection or limitation. She had discovered her worth and the true measure of her character. She continued to embrace challenges, always learning, always growing. Her days were filled with meaningful work, mentorship, and moments of quiet reflection under the wide open sky. She knew that life would continue to present obstacles, but she was ready to face them with determination and grace. The turning point she had reached was not the end of her journey. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one where she could continue to shine, help others, and live with pride in her abilities. The rancher, who had first welcomed her as a small, rejected child, now looked at her with deep respect and pride. He knew that she had become someone extraordinary, not because of physical strength or perfection, but because of heart, intelligence, and courage. She had proven that true value is measured not by what others think or by outward appearances, but by actions, character, and the willingness to persevere against all odds. As the sun set over the ranch, casting a golden glow across the fields, the girl stood with the animals she had come to love and protect. She felt a deep sense of belonging, not just to the ranch but to herself. The girl who had once been called lame had discovered her true worth. She had faced fear, overcome doubt, and proven her strength through courage, patience, and determination. And in that moment, she knew that her journey of growth, recognition, and resilience was only just beginning. Years passed on the ranch, and the Apache girl, once small, timid, and rejected, had grown into a strong, capable young woman. She had faced storms, fires, and challenges that would have broken the spirit of many, but she had overcome each one with patience, courage, and intelligence. Her limp, which had once made her feel weak and unworthy, had become a part of her story, a mark of how far she had come and what she had learned along the way. The rancher had watched her grow from a hesitant, unsure child into someone who could handle responsibility, lead others, and care for the animals with skill and understanding. He trusted her completely. She could manage the cattle, tend the horses, and supervise younger helpers, all while keeping calm during emergencies. The other workers respected her, no longer seeing her as the girl with a limp, but as someone whose wisdom, courage, and kindness had earned her a place among them. Despite her success, the young woman never forgot where she had come from. She remembered her parents who had sold her because they thought she was weak. She remembered the pain of rejection, the loneliness she had felt, and the longing to be accepted. Those memories had shaped her, but they did not define her. She had learned to see herself as strong, capable, and valuable, not because someone else said so, but because she had proven it through her actions and character. Her story had begun to spread beyond the ranch. Nearby villages spoke of the Apache girl who had turned adversity into strength, who had saved her animals during storms and fires, and who had become an indispensable part of the ranch's daily life. People came to see her work firsthand, impressed by her skill and dedication. She inspired those who felt overlooked, those who had been told they were weak, and those who were struggling to find their place in the world. Her life had become a symbol of resilience, determination, and the power of believing in oneself. One day, a challenge unlike any before came to the ranch. A neighboring ranch had suffered from a severe drought, and many of their animals were sick or weak. The rancher knew that the young woman's talent with animals could make a difference, so he sent her to help. She approached the task with quiet determination, observing the condition of each animal and finding ways to care for them, despite the difficult circumstances. Her gentle hands, sharp eyes, and calm demeanor allowed her to heal some of the sickest animals and teach others how to care for the herd effectively. By the time she returned to her ranch, word had spread of her remarkable skill and compassion. Her ability to inspire and teach extended beyond animals. She began mentoring other children in the community, particularly those who had been overlooked, abandoned, or underestimated. She shared her story, showing them that it was possible to rise above difficulties, find their strengths, and create opportunities even when life seemed unfair. Her guidance gave hope to many who had once felt powerless. She taught them that courage and determination were not always about strength or speed, but about patience, intelligence, and heart. Meanwhile, her bond with the rancher grew deeper. He had become more than a guardian or mentor. He had become a father figure, someone who had believed in her when others had doubted her. He often reminded her of the lessons she had learned, to stay calm in the face of challenges, to observe carefully, and to act with confidence and care. He praised her for her achievements, but also encouraged humility, teaching her that true strength came from using her abilities to help others and make a positive difference. Life continued with its routine and unexpected challenges. She faced storms, illness among animals, and long, exhausting days, but she no longer feared them. Every difficulty was an opportunity to grow, to test her skills, and to demonstrate her courage. She had learned to trust herself, to rely on her instincts, and to act decisively. Each day reinforced her belief in her own value and her capacity to handle whatever came her way. Her accomplishments eventually reached her family. Rumors of her skill, courage, and dedication made their way back to the village where she had been born. Some of her relatives heard of the girl they had once sold and were amazed to learn how much she had grown. They saw that the child they had deemed lame had become someone extraordinary, respected, capable, and admired. Though the past could not be changed, the young woman approached her family with kindness, showing them that forgiveness and understanding were more powerful than resentment. She offered them no anger, only a quiet strength and a demonstration of her success and self-worth. The girl had become a symbol of hope, resilience, and determination. She had shown that being underestimated or rejected does not mean someone lacks value. She had proven that challenges could be overcome with patience, intelligence, and courage. Her legacy on the ranch was not only in her work with animals, but in the lessons she imparted to those around her. She taught everyone that true worth is measured not by physical ability or appearances, but by character, heart, and actions. As years went by, she began to take on leadership roles on the ranch. She organized the work, trained new ranch hands, and solved problems that had once seemed unsolvable. Her presence brought calm to tense situations, and her knowledge was trusted in emergencies. The rancher, who had once been her guide, now relied on her as a partner in running the ranch. Together, they managed the land, cared for the animals, and maintained a thriving operation. Her contributions were invaluable, and the respect she earned was genuine and heartfelt. Despite her busy life, she never lost her sense of empathy. She remembered the loneliness she had felt as a child and sought to provide comfort and guidance to others who were struggling. She offered help to children and adults alike, teaching them skills, giving advice, and showing them that they could rise above their circumstances. Her kindness and patience became a defining part of her character, making her not only respected but loved by those around her. The young woman also found personal happiness. She formed deep friendships and meaningful connections with those who had shared the ranch with her over the years. People admired her not only for her skill but for her courage, resilience, and generosity of spirit. She had built a life full of purpose, respect, and love, something she had never thought possible when she was first rejected and sold as a child. Her story became a lesson to everyone who knew it. Villagers, ranchers, and travelers spoke of the girl who had overcome hardship, who had turned her perceived weakness into strength, and who had inspired others through her courage and heart. She had shown that rejection, pain, or disability does not define a person. What matters most is the ability to persevere, to learn, and to act with integrity and compassion. Even in quiet moments, she reflected on her journey. She remembered the pain of being sold, the fear and loneliness of her early days on the ranch, and the long path she had walked to reach this point. She also remembered the small victories, the first time a horse trusted her, the first herd she guided successfully, the first time she saved animals during a storm. Each memory reminded her of how far she had come and how much she had grown. By the time she reached adulthood, she had become a respected leader, a mentor, and a symbol of hope. The ranch thrived under her care, and the people around her flourished because of her guidance and inspiration. She had transformed her life, not through anger or resentment, but through perseverance, courage, and a steadfast belief in her own worth. She had turned every obstacle into an opportunity and had proven that even someone once called lame could leave an extraordinary mark on the world. In the evenings, she often stood on the porch of the ranch, looking out over the fields and animals she had come to love. The wind carried the scent of grass and earth, reminding her of all she had learned, all she had overcome, and all she had achieved. She thought of the girl she had once been, a frightened, rejected child, and felt a quiet pride. That child had survived, grown, and thrived. She had become more than anyone could have imagined, a person of courage, compassion, and remarkable strength. Her legacy was clear. She had shown that true value is not determined by others' opinions, physical abilities, or societal expectations. It is defined by heart, determination, courage, and the willingness to persevere. She had proven that challenges can be overcome, that rejection can be transformed into opportunity, and that even the most overlooked individuals have the potential to achieve greatness. The young Apache woman had finally found peace with her past. She forgave her family for their choices, understanding that their actions did not define her. She embraced the life she had built on the ranch, grateful for the rancher who had seen her worth and given her a chance. She understood that her journey had been difficult, but it had led her to a place of purpose, respect, and fulfillment. As she looked toward the future, she knew that challenges would continue to come, but she was ready. She had learned that fear can be faced, doubt can be overcome, and obstacles can become stepping stones. She had discovered the strength within herself, the power of patience and observation, and the importance of acting with courage and compassion. And she knew that her story, her journey, and her accomplishments would continue to inspire others for generations to come. The girl who had once been sold because she was deemed lame had become a woman of strength, wisdom, and heart. She had proven her worth in ways that could not be denied. Her life was a testament to resilience, courage, and the power of believing in oneself. She had turned rejection into opportunity, fear into action, and doubt into determination. And in the end, she had found not just success, but love, respect, and a place where she truly belonged.